All right. Kevin back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I'm here with Liz Germain. Liz, welcome. So awesome to have you here today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, this is kind of cool because I reached out to you because I've seen you on Facebook and I'm like, I think it would just be cool to interview Liz for the podcast. And I didn't tell you this before we started recording, but I will tell you that was a little bit out of my comfort zone because Liz, you're the first person I ever did that with.
Oh, amazing. Well, I'm glad to be here.
I never reach out to anybody cold and say, can you be a guest on the show? It's always people I know or people that I get introduced to from other people I've already interviewed. And
Very cool.
That was me stepping out on a limb, but I know what I did share with you before we hit the record button was I've been watching you on Facebook for a while. I'm like, you know what? This gal Liz, she has an incredible skill. She's really good at what she does. And I would love to interview her for the podcast. And so I'm just going to reach out to her. And so I'm really glad that I did. So,
yeah, I'm so glad. I'm even more pumped to do this. That's
so
awesome.
What I'd like to do is to start with is I want to turn it over to you so that you can share a little bit about what you do, who you serve, what inspires you most about the work you do and the impact you make. And we'll just start there, Liz, and set a little bit of context for this conversation.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I am a YouTube organic growth consultant. And essentially, we help experts, influencers, authors, coaches, speakers, basically any type of business owner that wants to build an audience do that on the YouTube platform. And I got started in that because I myself was a YouTuber and still am a YouTuber for the last decade or so. And originally I started in the health and fitness space for women, had a transition with that particular business partnership that I was in and decided, you know what, I really just love everything about YouTube. And I want to do that more. So a few years ago, made the transition into full-time YouTube consulting. And so now we're helping all kinds of different people grow organically on YouTube without any paid ads or anything like that, just building authentic, real, valuable audiences that care about the work that leaders and experts in the world are doing. So it's really cool. Never a boring day on the job. I will say that because YouTube is, there's all kinds of weird stuff on there, and then you can learn all kinds of stuff and be entertained in all kinds of different ways. And so that's part of why I chose to invest, the next several years of my life into helping other people realize the power of that platform.
Yeah.
So when I was in my first YouTube days, I did a weekly video every week for about 6-7 years on the first ever channel that I started with my sister, actually, my real life sister.
Wow.
And when I was figuring all that stuff out, she ended up getting married and left the business. Okay. And so in that transition, I was like, well, do I keep doing this health and fitness stuff or do I move on? And I went back and looked at the last several years of where the highest ROI was coming from. And to my surprise, even though we were running paid ads, we were posting on Instagram every day, like it was a lot of work, right? But when we actually broke down the KPIs and where the real ROI was coming from, YouTube and Pinterest actually were our number one traffic sources and also our highest converting platforms too. Wow. So in that transition, I was like, and I got really curious why that was. And that's when I realized, oh, it's because of the evergreen nature of YouTube content. It doesn't just live on a timeline where 24 hours later, your content just disappears into this huge sea of other short form videos or, image posts and carousel posts and things like that. And YouTube videos have the potential to perform for the next decade or more sometimes. So when I realized that, I was like, wow, why would any entrepreneur do anything different? So I went all in with the YouTube world and I've been doing that ever since.
Wow. And, I think what, you and I were talking about our mutual friend, Jesse Elder, before we started recording. And Jesse has become a real close friend over the last decade. And I love following Jesse on Facebook because he just has, like you said, there's all kinds of stuff out there. there's all kinds of people out there doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But Jesse is just I don't like to use the word authentic because it gets overused, but he's just real. He just keeps it real. He just, and you're the same exact way. And you just have this way of communicating of like, here's what I do. Here's how I might be able to help you. And if it makes sense, let's have a conversation and stuff. And, it is like such a breath of fresh air seeing people that are just really world class at what they do and just communicate in such a down to earth, easy way, And I think the world needs more of that right now.
I would agree. And what's interesting about Jesse specifically is he and I are actually from the same hometown.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. So we had several mutual friends that we connected with or through, and we eventually got to meet like way later, now that we're both established entrepreneurs and helping people in these different ways. But going back to the roots, we grew up in the same town.
Wow.
I find that
Wow.
very interesting that he's got really amazing content, super authentic. And I definitely think that growing up in the town we're from, which is Ann Arbor, Michigan, had played a big role in that.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Small world. Small world. Okay. So now that we've got a little bit of context set, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. I'm going to reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, Liz, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons that completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today wouldn't be possible if not for this person or persons? And I'm just really excited to hear your story and your experience around this topic of relationships.
Yeah, there's one person when you frame the question that way that stands out above and beyond the rest, and that is Chalene Johnson.
Okay.
It's a very interesting story how I actually got connected to Chalene. She's also from Michigan, which is cool. So I'm seeing a pattern here in authentic, cool, successful, driven people coming from Michigan. But outside of that, I first came across Chalene through Beachbody, actually. She was one of their featured instructors for a really long time. And a lot of people don't know this about Chalene, but she actually holds the Guinness World Record for being the celebrity in the most fitness videos of all time.
Oh, wow.
And when I grew up in Michigan, it's not really a place where health and fitness is necessarily number one priority. And so I grew up, I was a little bit overweight, didn't really exercise ever. I did play sports and things like that, but most of my free time was spent eating potato chips on the couch, watching Simpsons reruns and all that. So I had a really life-changing experience where I lost a close friend actually to suicide when I was right after I graduated high school. And it just sent my whole life into a tailspin. And I realized in that moment, okay, you know what? I don't ever want to have that happen to my own family. I never want to do that to my own family. And so I really need to take the reins on all areas of my life, my physical health, my mental health, my financial health, my spiritual health. And I made a very definite decision after I attended that funeral. Even at a very young age, I was like, okay, I'm going to make this mean something. And so in figuring out what do I want my dream life to look like, I decided I wanted to move to California where the weather was nice and there's all kinds of healthy foods. I got really into exercise. And on the path of getting into fitness, really, because I started out originally running. I just was like, okay, what's the easiest thing I can do? Just go outside and start running, right? But then my sister followed in my footsteps, literally, and she ended up running so much that she didn't have the muscular capacity to support all that high impact activity. And she ended up having to get hip surgery.
Wow.
At 22 years old. Like, it was really bad. So I was like, okay, there has to be a better way. So I started exploring and learning more about how to have a strong and healthy body, not just for like aesthetic reasons, although that's a nice bonus, but really for the mental health benefits, for the health benefits, for the longevity benefits. And so as I was exploring and researching and all that, I came across Chalene Johnson via her Turbo Fire workouts, which is like this like high intensity kickboxing style workout. And in the process, I had come across other big trainers like Jillian Michaels and things like that. And Chalene was the first person that I'd come across in the fitness world that actually made fitness really fun. And it was very positive focused. It was focused on she'd drop in little Brian Tracy quotes into the workouts or other things like that. And so it was a very positive, growth oriented process of just watching her workout videos and working out with her.
Mhm.
She would say things like, "You're not tired, you can do this. Like it's okay, just one more rep, like give it all you got." Like it was all very positive, which was a stark contrast to the more Jillian Michaels style training of, you got to do this or else. I just didn't resonate with that.
Yeah.
And so Shalene initially transformed my life through her workout videos. And I started to apply those same mindset practices and attaching positive meanings to motivation, right? To do hard things that you don't necessarily want to do,
Mhm.
to all areas of my life, not just within my workouts. And then Instagram was created. You remember those days
I
when
remember
Instagram was
those
a
days.
brand new baby bird?
We're dating ourselves now.
Right? Yeah, I know, for real. So then Instagram was created, and my sister and I, we had teamed up because we were on this fitness journey together. And so we started sharing the workouts we were doing, healthy recipes, things like that. And eventually, this was when Instagram was brand new. Eventually, Shalene, who at that point was like our career idol, we were like, we just love her so much. She's changed both our lives. Our choices to get healthier also trickled down into our families and our friends and things like that. And so she just had such a positive impact on us before we ever even met. And when Instagram was brand new, she was running this like contest or giveaway or something like that.
Okay.
And so we entered. It was like, do this little pose and post it online with all the little hashtags. This was like way back in the day when Instagram hashtags actually did something. And so we did that, and she ended up finding our account. And because we had it very like meticulously branded and it was very clear what we were trying to build, she reached out to us, and we ended up
Wow.
winning the contest that she was hosting. And so we connected with her a little bit, and it was just absolutely wild. Like it almost, not to be like a super fan girl, but it was really, at the time, it was like a dream come true to have your career idol be talking to you and asking to connect and share phone numbers and share more about what we wanted to do and how she could help support us and things like that. And really, before then, I had never had anybody invest in me in that way. Even just like seeing, hey, you seem like a good person, you're doing good work in the world, I would love to help support you.
Yeah.
And so, let alone from somebody that I idolized at the time. And so here we are, and Shalene reaches out to us, and she ended up inviting us to one of her events because she
Wow.
also, now she does way more like marketing and business training. She's had, oh my gosh, I think 7 or 8 different 7-figure businesses that she's built over the years. So she's very, very successful in the business world as well. And she does more of that now. But she reached out and she invited us to one of her marketing events, and she ended up using some of our content as a case study in one of her programs to teach other women how to do what we had done and build an audience and things like that. So over the years, we ended up, obviously connecting with Shalene more and more. And she's just such an incredible person, inside and out, so successful in every area of life, in her family life, financial life, spiritual life, health life. All of it was like, wow, this is really what I would love my life to look like too. And luckily, by the grace of God, we got to connect, and she kind of took us under her wing and taught us a lot of the actual monetization strategies and how to actually create a real business out of what was formerly a hobby blog, right? Just sharing the things we were doing on a day-to-day. And so when I think about the most impactful relationship, the way you phrase that,
Yeah.
the one that's had the biggest ripple effect on not only my life, but then through me, thousands of other
That's right.
lives. It
That's
was
right.
definitely all credit goes to Shalene Johnson.
Yeah. And what an awesome story, Liz. And so it's I love asking this follow-up question, especially when I hear stories like what you just shared. So if you look at this relationship with you and Shailene, and you know, I want think of an experience where you were able to have this really massive impact, and hands down, that it never would have happened if not for the relationship that you and Shailene have.
Yeah, that's a great question too. So once we went to she still runs this event too. It's called Marketing Impact Academy. We went to that event, And I remember we got to meet in person for the first time, and my sister and I obviously were googly eyes, and she just pulled us aside after one of her talks or one of her trainings, and she said, "Girls, I love what you're doing, but what's your plan B?" And we're like, "What do you mean? We don't have a plan B. We burned the boats. We've got plan A and that's it." And she's like, "I understand. And also you need to have a plan B." Like, just one of the things she really drills is multiple streams of income
Mhm.
and having those insurance policies in your business. And so we started getting really curious about what should our plan B be.
Mhm.
And at the time we were only selling digital products and stuff like that. And so we started developing a wider product suite. We got into a supplement line that added additional income. We started doing brand deals and sponsorships. We started making more money on YouTube. So instead of just going all in on like the one thing, we really heeded that advice and took it all the way to the limits. And over time, about 2, 3 years after that, the brand had built to the point where eventually we had served over 100,000 women in 32 different countries around the world, which is still, to me, it blows my mind that
Yeah.
two small Midwestern girls could just like have a passion and share it with the world, and it could impact lives in that way. And one of the things that really stands out to me in the love-based lessons that I learned from that and the impact that her influence on us had on the world is that within that community, every once in a while we'd get feedback or testimonials, or people would reach out via email. And one of the digital products we sold was a strength training program. So it was like how much to lift, what days to lift, had all the little calendars and things like that, a community built in for support. And the goal of that program was initially to help women get strong from the inside out. Um, we got a couple messages, and one stood out in particular to me. It was this woman from Sweden who had reached out via email, and she said, "I just want to thank you so much for putting together this program. Initially, I thought, oh, I'll just get, strong and fit and all that. But I realized through the mindset pieces that you had woven into it, in building true strength from the inside out in all areas of your life, because you can't necessarily put that on a landing page or a marketing sales page or whatever, that, hey, this has the capacity to change your entire life, not just the way your body looks and feels." She wrote, "The strength that I built in the gym with these workouts gave me the mental strength to leave an abusive relationship that I've been trapped in, and to get my kids out of it too, so that they're not being exposed to that at all and being influenced by that." And that one particular message stands out to me above and beyond all the rest, because it's like, wow, if Shalene hadn't invested into us and shown us the way of how to make fitness fun and also how to apply that mindset to all areas of your life, we wouldn't have then paid it forward. And that woman in Sweden maybe would still be stuck in that abusive relationship, or her kids would grow up and have to deal with things that they shouldn't have to deal with. So I would say that message in particular, of the 100,000 women that we were able to touch with that business, definitely stands out, and still to this day is like tribute to Shalene for her choices, because that's the butterfly effect or the ripple effect of
That's right.
her being such an amazing person.
That's right. That's right. And that's why I love asking that question, because I think as entrepreneurs, we don't really look and like and well, for one, that one experience that you just shared, I'm sure there's lots of others that you could share. And yet, as entrepreneurs, I think a lot of times we don't really look at the ripple effect of what we do. And I know, years ago, when I used to own the publishing company, and we had a training that we put out, and we sold over a 13-year period, we sold $16.1 million worth of that training. But I remember one time getting a call in the office from this teenage girl who was, man, I'm going to get emotional talking about it, who, when I answered the phone, I didn't usually answer the phone, but my office gal was at a dentist appointment that day, and so I answered the phone, and this gal was calling to thank us for giving her father back, because he used to work so many hours and she never used to see him. But she's like, now, thanks to what he's been learning from you, she goes, now he's got a whole new thing going. He's so much happier. And now I get to see him more. He's at all my stuff. And that would have never happened without you guys. And I'm just like, man, oh man,
Wow, that's
and
amazing.
and I can guarantee you too, Liz, with the people that you serve, because of who you serve in your business and the work that you do with people, helping them with YouTube, and because of who they are, and that you are impacting not only them, frontline people that you serve, but the people on their teams, the families of the people on their teams, the clients that they serve, the families of those clients, and the ripple effect just keeps going and going and going. And people like you are really having this massive impact in the world. And what you just shared is such a perfect example of that. And what I learned a long time ago, that as entrepreneurs, at least for me, I believe this 100%, relationships are the most valuable asset we have. Everything else stems from that. And when we just place that value on relationships, all of a sudden life gets like really simple,
Yeah, it
because
does.
we just get to show up and be us, complete with, like, yeah, we might be world class at doing this thing that we do. You might be world class at doing YouTube, but you know what? In a lot of other areas of our life, we're not so world class. And we need help from somebody else who's better at that than us, and that can help us and give us insight and perspective, and so to have those relationships of people that we can go to and trust and connect with and just confide in and just be real with, and get that insight in return. And man, I mean, that is so powerful, and so I want to, thank you for taking the time to have this conversation today. And for anybody that's listening to this going, man, Kev, I really like Liz. I like the way she shows up. How can they find out more about the work that you're doing and the impact you're making in this world?
Yeah, you can find me everywhere on social media at Liz Does Video
Okay.
or at lizdoesvideo.com. And for YouTube support specifically, you can always head over to youtubegrowthhacks.com to get started. We have a few different resources over there to help support anybody that wants to grow their channel organically.
Perfect. Okay. Liz, is there any last thing that you feel led or compelled to share before we call it a wrap today?
Yeah, I think the main thing is that when I look back at the ROI of everything, obviously I discovered how powerful YouTube can be. But even beyond that, I completely agree that the relationships behind growing a business are above and beyond more profitable in so many ways and more valuable. And we wouldn't be able to have businesses if it weren't for people. And one thing that I would love to leave the listeners with is that even in the pursuit of building an audience or building a brand, whether it's on YouTube or any other platform, it's really easy to get sucked into the numbers, like how many views or how many subscribers, right? And you almost like, it's so easy to just dehumanize the fact that those numbers represent real human beings on the other side of the screen.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if you want to do anything better in business, getting better at relating with other people is the number one key ingredient. It's like kind of the ultimate secret or hack to being successful in any area that you decide to invest in your life. So thank you so much for highlighting that, because it's not something that's often talked about. We hear about funnels, we hear about sales scripts, we hear about AI tools now. There's all kinds of different, pathways that an entrepreneur can go down. But at the end of the day, all of those tools are designed to serve people, and all of the metrics that you're trying to build when you're trying to build an audience and a brand represent actual human beings. And so the more that you can anchor to that and really invest in those relationships, the more it will pay off for you long term.
Absolutely. Well, Liz, I want to just thank you so much again for taking the time to have this conversation today. I am really excited to share this interview with our listeners because I know what an impact it's going to have. And so thank you. Thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.